All right, we will now call to order the March 26, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting. Sorry for yelling at you, but we don't have microphones in here, so I'm doing my best so that you can hear. All right, the Nebraska Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is posted here next to, right here, the framed version. Excellent. All right, roll call. Sheila, please.
Joanne Lindgreen.
Present.
Cindy O'Connor.
Present.
Emily Garrick.
Present.
Angela Blasey.
Present.
Mitch Wagner.
Present.
Skip Alter.
Present.
Okay. And our mission statement. North Platte Public Schools is a destination school district and community that embraces innovative opportunities and distinguished programs to create highly competitive advantages for all students, instilling the canteen spirit in an evolving world. The canteen spirit embodies generosity, selflessness, and unwavering support through service, pride, collaboration, and grit. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the publication of the March 26, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the publication for the March 26, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Second.
All right, Sheila, roll call, please.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Yes.
Present?
Yes. Present? Yes.
Emily Garrick.
Aye.
Angela Blasey.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Aye.
Skip Alter.
Aye.
Joanne Lindgreen.
Aye.
Okay, motion
Motherfucker.
passes.
We've seen each other.
It's been a long week, it's okay. All right, I would now entertain a motion to approve the March 26, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda for the March 26, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting. Second.
Roll call, please.
Emily Garrick.
Aye.
Angela Blasey.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Aye.
Skip Alter.
Aye.
Joanne Lindgreen.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
All right, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks.
Oh, it's over here.
Oh,
All right, two options.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will kick off this meeting with our superintendent's report with Dr. McDonald, please.
Sure. Just a few things to report on here. First off, we had a little safety security threat on Monday, so the evacuation process, I wanted to give just a thank you to the high school staff, of course, Katansky and his team, the McKinley team, Brandy Busher, everybody that assisted with that process. North Platte Police Department was unfortunate, was not expected obviously, but I thought everybody did a great job. Got the kids evacuated and safely home to their designated areas, and came back on Tuesday and started that ACT and got that going strong. So again, just a huge thank you for everybody that was involved there to make that a safe and secure, and do the best we can with that incident. So a couple other things, just some teaching and learning visits that we had over the last couple weeks. Attended at Cody, Lincoln, Jefferson, and McDonald. Had some great conversations with the building principals there in regards to teaching and learning and what's taking place in their buildings. And then just discussing how we're going to finish the school year, what that looks like, and then of course some of the summer work, the curriculum work that's involved there. So that process is going well. We had a student information system demo from Synergy. Brian and his team and the directors at McKinley sat down. We're currently using Infinite Campus. Synergy is another platform that could potentially provide us more tools for assessment to gather information, and that our building principals and staff could use at their fingertips. And it's in real time to help with classroom, what we're teaching via our curriculum, all of those different areas. And then we can provide more benefits to each student on an individual need as to what their need is, what we need to reteach, what we need to focus on. And so that was neat. I think that we're looking at just trying to see what that proposal looks like if we were to change or upgrade. I think that the process would be seamless in regards to transporting the information over from Infinite Campus to Synergy, if that's something that we were to bring forward or discuss or decide. Again, we're still in conversations. There's other opportunities to demo that software as to what areas it may benefit within the school system itself and which departments it may benefit. So that's ongoing, but it was exciting to see something that other school districts in the state of Nebraska are also utilizing, and the success that they're having with that program as well. So we're just at paraprofessional negotiations, collective bargaining, and so this was our second meeting. We will have a third meeting April 9th. Yes, thank you. April 9th. And looking forward to that meeting and potentially wrapping up those collective bargaining talks at that time. I think the meetings have been productive and very civil, and I appreciate the professionalism all the way around. So it's been a good process. And the last thing is I'll just mention April 15th or 20th, depending on the legislative session when it ends. They will have a webinar, and that webinar will be for for legal counsel to give a practical guide to the implementation of some of the new laws that have been passed and signed, or the laws that have been signed by the governor, and what those implications are for school districts. So I look forward to attending and listening to see what's coming down the line and what has been passed. I know a couple have already that we mentioned in previous board meetings, but at the end of the day, that will wrap up that session. So that is my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Would you anticipate the software conversation between Infinite Campus and Synergy and all of that, if that continues to move forward, is that something that we'll maybe have as an agenda item, just so that people
Sure.
see that
Yeah, certainly.
some of the information presented? And
Yeah, we'll have to at that
Okay.
particular point in time, because
Okay.
I anticipate, I don't know what that proposal is, but to change platforms, there's going to be a dollar amount to that. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it just depends on how comfortable everybody feels as well, and what the benefits. We've been using Infinite Campus for quite a while, and there's a level of comfortability with that program.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll see how that materializes moving forward.
That's it. Thank you. Any questions from the board for Dr. McDonald?
Nope.
Okay. I'll go ahead and just kick us off with board engagement, and I will keep mine brief because I know we want to keep tonight's focus hopefully primarily on budget is the goal. So in the past month since we last met for Committee of the Whole, I did have the opportunity to go read at Washington. I know there were several board members that got the opportunity to read in various elementary schools, which was a great experience for me, and I assume for those that also got to do that. I also got to visit at Buffalo. And the day that I was able to visit there happened to be the day that Mrs. McDaniel's class was also there performing, which was very cool to see both ends of the spectrum with our high school students there and then our little ones with the preschoolers. So that was really fun. And I honestly was very amazed at a gymnasium full of preschoolers, how well they did and how engaged they were. And they have very clearly established really good routines there in that building. So that was great to see. And then I did also get to go back to my old stomping grounds at Adams Middle School. So that was a fun visit. Got to hear a lot of just great discussions and updates on some of the changes that have happened there at Adams over the last couple of years and just how that has impacted student learning there, behaviors there. The update on how the cell phone policy has affected Adams was extremely positive. So that was very good to hear that there. And overall, it's just great to be able to get into the buildings and see those things in action.
I'll go next. I don't have a lot, so it'll be quick. I was gone for the last meeting, so I missed you all a little. We caught up for Tuesday. So we've done the interim superintendent interviews, and that was very exciting. I was very encouraged at how well the board comes together and asks questions and bounces ideas off of each other. It's very encouraging to see that, especially when we're in a back room area. We're doing the parent negotiations right now, and I don't know that I have ever realized exactly what a para does. I think they're absolutely phenomenal. We've got some great ones in our district, so thank you to all of them. But that I think is going pretty well too. So that's all I got.
All right, Skip is pointing to me, so buckle up. I've been busy this month, partially because I was catching up. As you all may remember, I had surgery last fall, and so that kind of limited my ability to go and visit schools and whatnot. So, so I've had time. So anyway, March 2nd, I also went and read at Washington. I read to a kindergarten and a first grade class. That was a lot of fun. Was also able to walk around the building and see lots of great learning going on. On the 4th, I came and participated in the blood drive here at the high school. So that's always a good event to get to support. March 5th, I was able to visit Adams, and Emily touched on a lot of things, but one of the things that I really enjoyed as far as the learning, they showed me, they had I'm going to say a bracket on the wall, but it was with different species of animals, and the 8th graders were having to decide who was going to come out the winner. One of the ones that I saw specifically was a lion and a fungus. And so I kind of need to go back and see who was winning in each of the categories, because I'm really curious how that turned out. And then on the 6th, I was able to come to the community performance of the Flipped Fairy Tales. I thought that was a really fun student production. I think it's so neat that there's students that are involved in the writing, the directing, and the performing of that show. So it was a really fun performance. On the 10th, I was able to visit Cody Elementary. The thing that I will highlight there was I really liked the intervention time that the 2nd grade had, so that they were able to divide into the various 2nd grade classrooms based on student need. I also got to watch a student the students in PE were doing the PACER test. My kids used to always talk about that. It looks terrible, but the kids really enjoy it. And then there was a reading intervention program, and she told me what it was called, but I can't remember. But anyway, there was a student who she told me who had really struggled, and it was something that the teacher utilizes the computer and it helps the kids sound out and do all of these things. And she was telling me there was one particular student that was in this small group that had just made leaps and bounds improvements. And so then on the 19th, I went to Eisenhower, and there was a lot of student work on the walls, and I really liked how it was displayed. The Americanism committee stuff was just flashing all over, because there was little, there was one grade, I can't remember specifically, but they were talking about something with a slave whose name was Mindy. I do remember that. And then there was also another classroom that had covered wagons kind of along the bulletin board above where they hang the coats. And so that was really good. One of the things that stood out to me there is that their EL population has grown, and sometimes it is a little bit difficult for communication, especially with parents who don't speak English. And so I think if there's some way to ever provide resources or tools or something, I think that would be really great. On the 20th, I was able to come and watch tennis here at the high school. Just a note on that, where we're going to be talking budget. The tennis courts are starting to look a little, not terrible, but they are looking a little shabby. So I think sometime in the next couple of years, we're going to probably need to look at resurfacing those. I was able to attend the musical, The Addams Family. That was really fun, especially where I've had kids that have grown up around a lot of these kids, and it's just so fun to see them grow and develop in their acting and musical talents. And I thought the day that I went, it was a Friday night, and they had a really good crowd. And then today, I was able to go to McDonald Elementary and went into the PE class, and they were playing a really fun game. It was with the parachute, and they had kids. There was a kid under the parachute who was the shark, and kids that were lifeguards. And so as soon as the shark started pulling a child by the ankles under the parachute, they had to raise their hands so the lifeguard could come and save them. And the lifeguards got behind a little bit, because once they got under the parachute, then they became sharks. And so then it was really a fun activity, though. And also, maybe be watching social media, because the kindergarten class was recording a video for the kindergarten roundup. So I'm not going to give anything away on that, but it looked like a lot of fun, and the kids seemed to be enjoying that. So saw lots of reading, writing projects there. It's really neat to see how kids are able to use their creativity skills, and specifically there was one group that was making a map of their playground. So they went outside to kind of review in their minds what their playground looks like, and then they were able to come in. They had to draw the playground, kind of decide the colors for their compass on the map. So it uses creativity and memory and all of those kinds of things. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention isn't necessarily school related, but kind of is. I was able to go to the Sandhills Symphony on the 1st of March, and every single one of our band orchestra teachers, I think for the most part in the district, was involved in that. There were several current students, former students, former music teachers, and Mr. Stoner, who teaches orchestra here at the high school, actually is the conductor of that group now, and just a fabulous performance. I've been telling people of all of the ones I've seen, and they've had some good ones. This was probably one of the best, so it was really impressive.
Did you sleep this month?
A little bit.
It's a good thing you retired.
My wife and I also attended the public performance of Shelley's Flip Fairy Tales, and I'll condense mine since she talked about it, but the idea of the students writing it under the direction of Mrs. McDaniel and their performance. And then I think the greatest thing about it is the touring of the grade schools, which I think this is the 3rd year I think they have done that. And I think it's really good that they take that out. On Thursday, March 19th, I visited Madison Middle School. I had a tour of the building. I saw a lot of things going on. In the science classrooms, they were talking about eclipses, so they had little globes, and then they had little moons, and they had to use a flashlight to shine and show how the different eclipses work and how it would shine on the moon or the globe. That was really very neat. And in English, they were discussing a book that they were reading about a group of girls that live on the border between Mexico and the U.S., and they were on the U.S. side. And all of the things that they're about a quarter of the way through the book. But I thought that was real interesting because they were discussing what they had read the day before. It was really good. Also in Robin Valley's office, she has a Principal's Wall of Fame where a student signs the wall when he or she has been recognized for doing something that's really neat. And there must be 50 names on there, and that was good. Also, on Sunday, March 22nd, I attended the Addams Family, the musical. Very good. You know, we got a lot of talented kids in this building because we're in the high school. And they showed it. It was a lot of fun. Congratulations to Mrs. Purdy and Mrs. McDaniel for all the work I know they have to put in on that. And the kids are so talented. And on top of that, tomorrow is the Class A state speech tournament. We have some students, Finley Eckloff and Isabella Frazier, won duo and terp at their contest at Raymond Central, and they will be competing. Finley also placed in poetry, and he will be competing tomorrow. And Kathleen McNeil qualified in serious prose. She'll be competing tomorrow. The other thing about that is they also had numerous other students who made the finals but didn't qualify. And North Platte finished third as a team in their district. So Mr. Bersinger has done a really good job as his first year as coach. There.
Well, I went to Lake School and read to the 4th grade and the 1st grade. And I kind of dressed for the part because I had on sparkly earrings and butterfly top and sparkly shoes. And the 1st grade, they were just, those kids just, they're a hoot. They're a hoot because when I'm done, they want to hug you. And then one little girl said, "You look like a princess."
Oh.
And I thought, oh, I want to take her home. But it was a great time.
Right. You have anything, Mitch?
Yeah, I visited Madison today. I left my sparkly earrings at home.
Darn it.
Really cared. But was able to see the building. Seemed like it was operating wonderfully. As you go class to class and kids are engaged, it's fun to see. And then one of the things I noticed was, as you walk in, there was a little setup with names on the ground and dog bones, and they said they'd increased their honor roll by 20% midterm or whatever. So I thought that was pretty cool too. So, and then I went to a baseball game today, and I'm here now.
All right. Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. And I did want to, I should have read through all of my notes before I quickly moved on, but I did also have several different correspondents within the community, and I wanted to relay this to our high school staff. That I had several correspondents, both law enforcement but community members, and wanted to reiterate that they were extremely complimentary of the way that our district handled everything that took place on Monday. And so I wanted to make sure that I relayed that message to you guys here in this building, that I knew that it was handled very well, but sometimes the community doesn't always see that. And I really feel like in this situation, the communication was phenomenal, but also just the handling of it, it was evident from the community that there are great systems in place and people in place, and that things went really well. So,
And we all appreciate what you did.
yeah.
Big shout out though to Mr. Peterson and Ms. Busher. I mean, there's just so many people that had every director on site.
Yeah.
It was just amazing, the support for them.
Absolutely. Well, just know it was seen, and not just within our walls, but it was seen by people that you maybe wouldn't expect to call and compliment the school on how things were handled. So thank you for that. Okay, if there's nothing else from the board, we will open this up for public comment. Public questions and comments may take place at this time on the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with the date, topic addressing, name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Sheila, do we have any?
I have none.
Okay. All right, then we will dive into our regular agenda here. So we'll kick this off with our North Platte High School report, please.
Well, tonight we've got Mr. Butler, Ms. Cahill, and myself, and we'll kind of divvy up some slides to show you a little bit about what we have going on here, specific to our site plan and some of the other questions that have came up over the last few weeks. But before we get into this, I mean, the site plans have been great. It's a good collaborative piece from all levels of our organization. And it's all focused on our kids. We've got a great team of teachers. We have a great team of support staff in our building. But none of this is possible without a great team, and that happens from our directorship down. I mean, it's awesome to see some of the data that's happening here and the contributions that a lot of folks have made. So, and we'll start off here, and I'll turn it over.
All right, so with data, here's just kind of a snapshot of what our average daily attendance looks like the last 4 years, and then the number of days absent. That top number we obviously want to go up, the bottom numbers we want to go down. Wow. And I think one of the eye-opening things is when we kind of get frustrated on those day-to-day, we're only at 91%, what does 92% look like? Sometimes we're talking 3,000 days to move from 91 to 92. And so sometimes looking into what those numbers actually mean, I think actually go a long ways to say we are making improvements even though 1.5% don't match what maybe feel like in the building day to day. But obviously the ones in the yellows, those are unofficial because obviously we still have like 6 weeks left of school. And so those numbers will change a little bit. But with some of the things in place, hopefully that stays in that same trajectory moving forward.
Well, no kids skip school in the last 6 weeks.
Never. And then this is just more the same idea, the same trend with 20 plus absences. That's across the state of Nebraska. The focus is that chronically absent. And it's going from 308, which is almost a quarter of the building, down to 118 at this point this year. That's obviously a huge decrease. We feel it in the buildings. Kids are here. It feels like they want to be here, and I think that shows with some of the growth we've seen with those numbers. And then obviously that bottom number we want to keep going up as well with 5 or fewer absences. And so obviously we know sickness happens, family issues happen, but obviously with some of the coding that we've done with IC of medical documentation and some of those things have helped those numbers as well. And so our day is looking a lot better.
Well, I just want to interject here, right? I always plan on 10 minutes a slide, and there's 28 slides, so that's 4 hours and 40 minutes, so Mr. Butler is actually doing his part to that Husker game.
And then the next 2 slides are just kind of what the attendance looked like per term last year versus this year. And so what I think is really cool to focus on is that those red and blue lines. At any given moment, we have 1,000 kids who are 5 or less here every term. And obviously sometimes those terms look different. They're not the same 1,000 kids, same 900 kids. But any given term, we have 1,000 who are at that 5 or below, which I think is kudos when you have 1,100 in the building. And so as we move forward to this year, a lot of those numbers still match up. Sometimes it's more in the blue of perfect attendance. Other times it's more like term 3 where it's more in the red, or at least a higher percentage in the red versus the blue. And as we move into the end of the year, we'll definitely be comparing what that overall year to year looks like as 15 or more, 20 or more kind of finalized. And then one of our big steps has really been the attendance plans. But that's been a focus K-12. A huge shout out to our student service department, but all the counseling departments, because obviously we have a lot of siblings in the district. And when we look at a sibling at Lincoln or Eisenhower, if they get to that day mark where they are doing an attendance plan, they send it up to us and vice versa if we hit it first. And so it's really been a team effort across the board with the attendance plan. And I have a quick little copy, and I think one of the big parts that we try to focus on is the whole student. What's really going on? Is it just academic? Is there some concerns with some mental health or attendance that we don't see just because we're only seeing some of the behaviors at school? And so we really try to work with the families, and if families do need it, now this is a Spanish version because it's the only one I had in my office, but if families need resources, we have offerings that, hey, reach out, look this way, look that way. And obviously as our demographics change and we have families moving in who aren't stable yet, I think these are going to be a huge part as we move forward.
So behavior in our building, obviously we have some behavior things that we have to work with every day. So looking at the numbers over the last 4 years, this is students who have had to attend ISS for whatever reason. They have made some kind of an infraction in class and so have ended up in ISS. And so in the last 2 years, we've actually needed the total number of ISS days have been needed less. So there's been a reduction in those days, which is good to see that kids are in regular classes and attending those at more of a pace than they were previously. On the next one, you're going to see our out of school. So OSS is out of school suspension, and there has been a slight increase in our out of school suspension days, but I think that that's a testament to that we have really solid expectations. And if you do this consequence, or if you do this action, you will get this consequence. And students know that, and you hear that in the hall. The other day, I overheard a conversation. The kid goes, well, what would happen if? He goes, you'll go out for 5 days. That's the consequence if you do that. And so they know it happens in our building, and they know what to expect. And it's not a wishy-washy day-to-day, I might get this answer or that answer. It's very solid that across the board, no matter which administrator you see, you are going to get the same consequence because we are all on the same page in our behaviors. And then part of our out-of-school suspension information is when a student goes out and we bring them back, we hold a reentry meeting. And so we do that in conjunction as a team the family sits down, we hold a meeting with that individual, their parents, we go through the expectations again. They sign it, we sign it, their counselor signs it, and then that process was really created in conjunction with our special education director and our student services director, and what needs to go in this plan and how can we work together to support our students. On the next slide, you'll see our expulsion data, which wonderful news is that our expulsion numbers have gone down this year. So last year you see that in the 24-25 school year, there was 19 students that ended up being expelled from this building, and this year there's only 13. So that is a good news that we've had to expel less students. And then you will see our cell phone information, and you talked about cell phones over at Adams, and so we have the same policy here in our building that Nebraska state statute requires that students do not have their phone in class and are using that. And so some things that we've seen here in our building with policy 6025 is that the engagement and interactions have increased. It's actually really encouraging when our students come to us and say, I don't feel like I have to be on all the time. I get to power down. I get to step away from Snapchat or social media. And so our students have recognized that. There's also increased conversation between students at lunch. So if you come in during lunchtime, you'll notice that our lunchroom is a little more loud because we have a lot more conversation, but we've seen friendships increase. We've seen the relationships between our students increase, and it's been a really positive change that they don't have this device to look into. It's conversation among their peers. Overall, we've seen a large reduction in social media driven drama and just so-and-so said this on Snapchat or on whatever platform, and so we've seen that decrease. And because of that, that directly correlated to physical aggression and fighting. Previously, the last year, it was 82 incidents of physical aggression or fighting within the building, and that's decreased to 36. So there's not a chance to say, hey, meet me, or do this, or hey, I think this. That's been completely taken away, and so that has reduced a lot. And that number, 82 to 60 or 36, is a big decrease. Teachers are doing a really good job at implementing this, and we've addressed a little bit of inconsistency to ensure everybody's on the same page, and that goes back to our team has to be really solid, and here's the expectation, and here's what everyone's following. And then overall, when this was pulled, we had 650 technology referrals. So the next slide you'll see is just the guidance that went out. This went out all summer long. This has gone out to students. This is posted around our building. There is not anyone who is not aware that this is the policy in our building and this is the policy of Norcross Public Schools. So students have their phone in one of three locations. You can leave it in your car, you can leave it in your locker, or you can leave it at home. And those policies are consistent, and our students know what their options are. And if you ask them, where can your phone be? You will get that. And so they know that really well.
They certainly don't all keep it there. You
No.
know, when we go through and do searches and whatnot for other things, and we find them a lot of the times, but when we are in classrooms, we don't see many phones ever, and when they do, I think there's been a pretty consistent approach
There has been.
to taking this.
Have your staff been able to see some of the data that you shared with us tonight of positives
Yes,
that are coming?
yes. And we're hearing a lot of positives from them that I have more engaged students. I'm able to have better conversations with my students. And so that's been a really good positive change from this.
I think that's great, and I had requested some data on cell phone for that exact reason, because I think there's a lot of questions around it, and I know there was a lot of community frustration about it, but I think when you see things like that, you see, hey, this really matters, and it is worth doing hard things and holding kids accountable because it's what's good for them, right? So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then month over month on this slide, you'll see that this year we had a slight increase. So the blue is this year, the green is last year. You'll see that there's a slight increase in overall behavior, and 658 of those incidents are actually related to cell phones. So this was very recent. We pulled this yesterday, so that number would be most up to date. And so overall, year to year, in 24-25, there was 1,759 behavior incidents, and this year there is 1,923. But if you consider that 658 of those are cell phone related violations, we've actually seen a decrease in other behaviors within our building. So students are better able to maintain those expectations in our building.
So I'll take over on this next part. You know, we have some slides in here with regards to just proficiency levels on the NSCAS ACT, and we will give you a picture of the last several years. This first one is about reading proficiency, specifically on that particular exam, and this is just one piece of the ELA calculation, but I think reading is the key, and we're seeing that 63.02% of our kids are proficient on reading on the college entrance exam, which is probably a fairly decent reason why we're seeing some of the other scores that we have. But we did have a study sync implementation in the 23-24 school year, and our secondary coordinator led our team through that process, and they arrived on this, and it's very heavy in reading and heavy in grammar, and that's been noticed then on this next slide when you look at what happened in grammar during that year of implementation. I mean, there was a fairly significant spike in our score, and although there was a slight decrease, it's we maintained after that spike for the most part. So there's a lot of focus placed on the grammar piece, not only through our curriculum but also through the John Baylor test prep. And again, our counseling department does a tremendous job of pumping information out and creating little graphics like you'll see here. And you probably noticed on social media, many of those were coming out leading up to the ACT test. Our kids had been exposed to this very early and often, so like I said earlier, it's a full team, but to have 49.43% proficient, and you rewind life just a couple of years and it's less than 30%, quite a significant change. And then we look at the total picture. Writing is assessed a little bit differently. It's a scale score of 3 times the value. So 6.1 and 6.2 is where we've been on that. But when we put everything into totality, this last year we're at 50.55% proficient on that test. And just judging by the way kids walked out, I'm expecting there to be some improvements even on this one. But the state average is 43%, and so where we were just a couple of years ago, we were well below state average, and now we're significantly higher than that. And that's one of the goals within our site plan, is that we want to continue to work beyond state average and improve from the previous year's data, so our proficiency level. You look at mathematics, this is the one area on that we're still below the state average. But again, if you rewind back to the 2023 school year, to be below 30th percentile and now to just be a point away or a percentage point away from what the state average is, we're knocking on the door. And there's various questions on that test, from lower level pre-algebra type of concepts all the way up into trigonometry, and there's many kids taking some of these higher level courses, and I know Mr. Butt will talk about some of that later. But science proficiencies as well, we're above the state average in science, and achieved that this last year for the first time. And then just a testament to the teachers. The great teaching has always been happening. It's just some strategies that we've imparted along with this John Baylor test prep, and we've been very intentional about the implementation of it. The first year we were really quick with it, just to get it out there, get folks familiar with it, and then over the last 3 years we built a lot of capacity within our staff. And even our students understand it now. Walking out of the building to go over to the interviews the other day, one student said, "I think I did pretty good on that." And I said, "Well, how good?" He goes, "I don't think I got them all right, but I think I might have scored a 35." And that was a student that I wasn't expecting, to have absorbed all that, but he knew the scale, right? I mean, so I think once people know the rules to the game, and they know I don't have to be perfect on this to be proficient, I just need to do the level best I can. That's probably one of the biggest strategies we've worked on with our kids, is work as hard as you can, as long as you can. Answer every question. You've got information in you. Let's get that out. And so there's a lot of pride, I think, that they're starting to exhibit as a result of that. On this slide, there you can see some of the trends on scores and what's happened over the last few years with regards to students that are proficient, which is usually an 18 or higher composite. Those that have scored a 20 or better, 25 or better, and 30 or better. And so our kids are bought into what's happening here. Looking at some of the preliminary data from kids that had already taken the ACT this year, we had 7 that had already scored above a 30 prior to test day. Well, if you just go back a year, we didn't even have a single student on test day score that. And again, I think it just goes to the culture and our counseling team, teaching and learning. I mean, our kids are exposed to this. We might have had a couple of dozen students that had taken the test prior to test day on average in a normal year. This year, what did we have, 111? 111 students had taken this assessment at a state, at a national site, right here in this building usually, or at Mid-Plains. And so that will only help them, but it will also reflect better upon what we're doing in the education that we're providing.
Tori,
Yeah,
can I interject real quick?
yeah, please.
I also just want to, because I'm really proud of these three, I'm also really proud of the special education
sure.
teachers. Because actually more students this year and last year that have special education services are taking the ACT.
Yeah.
Just because of like NDE, like what's happening with the laws and everything like that. So I also want to take that note because students with disabilities are included in these numbers. And that's pretty cool. So I just want to take note and give you guys a shout out.
Yeah.
Our student population has bought into preparing for this test and its importance and what this test can do. And test day is payday is kind of the motto that you'll hear as you come through our building. And we had about 3/4 of our building was able to complete their test prep prior to this test. So the majority of our students are preparing for this test and taking it serious, and that includes our special education students.
Well, because they now believe in themselves because of what we're putting in place. So all of our inclusive practices and everything we're doing at all levels is making a difference for kids with disabilities and without.
And there's a level of hope I think that kids have, and some of the scholarships that they're landing on the back end of it are, very high level. And we'll start to work with our counseling team too to get some of that information out leading up to senior awards night. But it's just it's a culture. It's a culture. And I wanted to just share a little bit too. I'm competitive. I know we all are, and so. This is what it looked like to compare us to the other 8 schools in our kind of comparative array in 22, 23. The NSI in the left column would be needs support to improve, which is the 1 rating. And if you look at this, we're dead last in ELA, and the strategies that we've implemented, the new curriculum that we've adopted, looking at mathematics, we're second to the last, and tied for second to the last. And if you fast forward just a couple of years, you'll see those significant changes within our array. But there's one school that's always been at the top of that array, right? And I think Kearney is kind of a measuring stick for a lot of folks in our area. But when you look at what the data shows us from this last year, from an English language arts standpoint, we were tied for first in that category. And within the mathematics area, tied for second. Now our teachers are working on a lot of strategies to really change this part of it, but that comes to the PLC process. And again, having that leadership that's put that process in place, game changer, complete game changer. Second, here in science. So, it won't be long and we'll be leading this array category. And that's something we talk about an awful lot, and it's something that we're very, very proud of because it takes a lot of people to work together to get this done. And the beneficiaries are the reason why we're all here, which is our kids. They benefit from all of this work. So I'll turn it over.
Yeah. So when our external team came through, one of their recommendations was to implement a SEL Bulldog Time class. And so we spent a lot of time brainstorming about this. There was a lot of conversations. Vicki and I had sat down and had some amazing conversations about what should this look like, what do these topics need to look like. Our counseling team worked tirelessly to pilot and create this. There was conversations at the district level with both special education and with student services about what do our students need, what are these skills that our students have to have and take forward with them after high school, because that's our goal here is we're raising individuals who are going to go out into our workforce and into our communities, and are we preparing them? And so through these conversations, then we got to these topics, and so these are the topics that our students have worked through during their Bulldog time. So appropriate greetings, time management, work habits, how to successfully work with adults or supervisors, using social media, using school and work technology appropriately. Part of that came down to that cell phone policy, and there was some conversation about that too. How to resolve an issue properly. And I think that this one played a big part in that reduction of physical violence and fighting, because kids now are like, well, we actually had one girl who said, I wanted to hit her. I was very angry, but I thought back to my skills and I knew I could just have a conversation with her. And I was like, you did it! We won! This is great. We also talk about dating violence, what safe relationships should look like, both in friendships and as they move into the dating world. and then creating good habits, and what does their future hold? What things are they interested in? And then that tied really closely with Tracy, and we worked with UNL and connecting the dots, and how can we set our kids up? So our freshmen, almost all of them, have a resume that they have built, and they took that to UNL, and we did our Connecting the Dots Day, and they were exposed to all kinds of careers that they could potentially have, and that goes in line with what we're doing with our CTE stuff. And these programs just work so hand in hand, and again, it takes the team. So all of us had to pool into this and do what's right for our kids. So it was pretty cool.
And so as we kind of close, kind of talking about the seniors that will be graduating here in just a few short weeks, we've already had 61 graduates, 51 in December and then 10 here just recently in March, which is about accurate to what the number was last year as well. And so we kind of see that steady, about 50 to 60 midterms. 37 have also graduated through our alternative education program. 4 were juniors, and then 2 have been 5th year plus. So kids who are, past getting that diploma, because the emphasis that we've tried to place on those doors open better, or more doors open if you have that high school diploma. This year's current grads, we're expecting 264 graduates, 18 social grads from our transition program over at the house with Ms. Jordan. 17 have dropped out. 9 seniors won't meet those requirements to graduate, and then we did have 4 go to homeschool this year. This is some of the fun stuff that not a lot of other school districts have set up yet, or at least not to the level that Ms. Foster and our counselors and our CTE programs have really fostered through real life experiences. And so we have 103 pathway completers this year, which is up from 83 last year. And what it means to be a pathway completer is you have to have an introductory course, a intermediate course, and then a capstone, all within that same pie chart, which is over there kind of behind us. And so that's always expanding, whether it be in the autos or welding, things like that, into the FCS components too. And so when Ms. Foster talks and brags about all the good things they're doing, it's fun to hear what other schools aren't doing, because our kids have that opportunity. And so we're seeing a lot of the positives on the test scores, but some of the classroom experiences that we're able to offer are second to none across the state. And then Mid-Plains is obviously a huge contributor to some of our higher level students. And so in the fall, 215 students took 634 courses for 1,719 credits, which means a lot of kids are leaving high school with almost associate's degrees. Some of them leave with associate's degrees. And so they're able to start their lives at a higher level even faster than what we did when we were in high school. And so it's definitely a neat thing to see some of these numbers. And obviously one of our challenges is to host some of these courses back at our building with some of our dual credit classes. That's always our push, is to get these back in our building. But obviously thankful for Mid-Plains that offer our kids challenging courses. And then lastly, just what the ACT comparison from last year's seniors to this year's seniors looked like. And then obviously we took the ACT test yesterday. And so, yesterday. 2 days ago. It's Thursday now.
It's been a week.
Yeah, some finished today. But just you could see how that average is up 0.6 points in composite. You can compare what the ELA looks side to side, and just how many students are now scoring at that 20 plus, that 25 plus, and that 30 plus, and just what a year can look like data-wise, and then what hopefully it looks like and projects to at the next level next year.
That's it. If any of you are interested and you're out and about and you want to tour North Platte High School, just make sure you reach out. We'll be more than happy to show you the great things that are taking place. And there are a lot of really awesome people in our building, and they're here to take care of our kids. That's pretty evident. So, thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Really was.
I'm pretty proud of this place.
Yeah, you should be.
You are officially our second school, or our first school that we've been here a second time to get to see
That's right.
2 years back to back. So
that's
this
correct.
is really great to see.
Yes,
progress.
thank you.
Yeah, we started here, didn't we?
Yeah.
Last year.
Yep. This was our first committee of the whole out meeting. Okay. Thank you.
This is wins from principals.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. All right, so as we round out our policy review cycle, which I will be looking forward to a few meetings without some policy review for a little while. I don't know about you guys, but we are finishing up this 6,000 series. So these policies, if there are any changes, we'll bring these to our next regular meeting of the board. So I suppose before I start going through policy by policy, I actually don't have a lot of notes. I only have one question on the policies in this series. Are there a lot of notes from board members or questions to where I need to take it policy by policy? Okay, excellent. Then we will not spend our time doing
A bunch
that
of
this
these
evening.
are fairly new.
Yes.
If you look, that we either updated, either late summer or last year, because they were statutes from the state. And I noticed that as I was looking at all of them, the date that they were last looked at, wasn't even a year. So, yeah, I have none.
Okay. Dr. McDonald, let's start with you. Was there anything that you saw in any of these policies that the board needs to look at, considering revising?
Nothing that I
Okay.
saw, like Skip had mentioned, they're relatively new policies.
Yes. I had one question, and it's really not a change. It's just as I was reading it, I was just more curious. On policy 6034, our concussion awareness policy, it mentions a chief medical officer. Who is that in our district? Or is that an appropriate title for us? Or should that maybe be revisited? I'm sure that was just what came in the recommended policy from KSB, but.
Yeah, typically most districts will use their, if they have a trainer, that would be their chief medical officer, or just specifically to have them go to a facility, clinic or whatever it might be, that would be the recommendation coming from them. But as far as protocol is concerned, usually that comes from a trainer, if there ever is an incident that needs to be evaluated.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you feel like that language is reflective of what we're doing?
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it encompasses anybody within the realm of chief medical officer as it pertains to each situation who's available at that particular point in time.
Okay. Perfect. Board members, any of you have any other questions or comments about policies in this series? Okay. The information that is in front of you, I had reached out to Dr. McDonald just about our cell phone policies simply because it was in this series of review, mostly so we could provide an update for the board to know how that is going, but also I think it's great for our community to hear an update. I think what you provided here in regards to your building is wonderful, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I received a lot of phone calls about cell phone policy when that was a topic of conversation, and very strong opinions on both sides, whether that was positive or negative. And although it was outside of our control, that we had to have the policy, I think how the policy is implemented is very much within our control. And providing an update to our community just about how that is going. And yes, that decision was made for us at the state level, but it's also a decision I feel like as a district we've embraced and really have some buy-in and see the importance of for our children. So I had reached out to Dr. McDonald to just inquire about how that was going in our district, with the assumption it was probably going pretty well and a positive change. And so I believe he then reached out to our building administrators and got some feedback from each of them. So that is what we see here in front of you. And honestly, it all looks very positive, that all buildings appreciate that that is in policy, that the issues have been fairly minimal, and that they're encouraged by minimizing cell phone use during the day. So I think this is all really great for us to see. And that physical aggression instances in the high school that's huge. That's exactly the kind of data that Is it directly cell phones? We probably will never know, but it seems to correlate, so.
I did have a question on
Okay.
our 6038, the artificial intelligence one. I kind of more towards high school. Is that policy where it needs to be? Is that cover everything that you guys need? I know in high school it can be a little bit more than in elementary schools.
I think that when it was reviewed last time, it offered the opportunity for there to be some open-ended pieces for teachers too, which is what it probably needed to have as we're kind of fumbling through all this change and stuff. So I think it's pretty spot on.
Okay.
I think the other thing that's good about that is anytime teachers request an access to an AI tool, that's getting filtered through our technology, and then that comes into teaching and learning, and then we're able to have a discussion about should that be in a district adopted tool.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the movement that we even discussed today in our TNL technology meeting, which was what are those approved AI similar tools that we can make sure that our teachers are aware of, and that the policy supports whether or not they choose to use that in class with their students. And so, I feel like we're always going to be chasing AI a little bit. And even today, part of the discussion was apps that are now being developed that prevent you from being identified as AI. So, it's one of those things. But I feel like I've appreciated this policy a lot for teaching and learning, because I do think it has lent itself for teachers to feel like they have, a say about what that's going to look like in their classroom. And then again, like I said before, if there's a tool that, they're wanting access to, then when we make sure that we run that through the technology department, because we also just don't want to open up everything.
Right.
And expose our district, to potential security breaches or something like that, so.
And our technology department does an amazing job
Amazing.
at looking through
They're
student
phenomenal.
information,
Mhm.
making sure what they're accessing is appropriate,
Yeah.
and reaching out. Brian's team and our team are in constant conversation. Hey, did you see this? Wanted to make sure you knew. So those lines of communication are so valuable. So your team is amazing. Thank you.
Well, I think, I agree with you. I think we're always going to be chasing AI. So I just want to verbally put that out there. If there's ever anything, even if we're not going over that policy that we need to be looking at, let us know, because we want to support you guys while you're doing your amazing work. That's all I have.
Anything else from the board on these policies? All right, that might be record-breaking policy review for us. Okay, our next item on the agenda is policy 2018. This is a recommended policy, so this is not currently a policy that we have in place. This is not a revision of a policy. This is draft of new policy language. This was brought as a draft on our last meeting agenda, and there were board members that just didn't feel like they quite had the time to digest and read through it and really feel like if they had any questions or opinions on it, be able to say one way or the other. So nothing on this has changed. This is the same attachment as last time, just bringing that back up for opportunity for discussion or questions or any thoughts on how we may wish to move forward with this policy. So
I do have a question, and it's under the records retention. It starts with electronic communications related to district business may constitute public records regardless of the device or account used, and board members shall not delete, destroy, or conceal electronic communications in violation, etc. If it's district business, that doesn't mean those things we get daily, like from the ballot thing, or we got this afternoon that says, Skip, as a teacher, you know what's going, well, that would have affected me 13 years ago, but not now. Those we can delete, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, you know how full it would be just district business things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so a great example of that would be, if, for instance, I, as board president, email out to the entire board, a contract
Right.
draft as an attachment, as an FYI prior to a meeting. That would be something that you should retain in your records.
And would we have to keep the Spark, our agendas from?
No, you would
Okay.
not need
That-
to.
That
do
was my only question, because I thought if we had to keep any and everything with the junk stuff we get,
Uh-huh.
which sometimes is more than any normal messages,
Yes.
and then the Spark, okay,
Yes.
then I'm good.
Yeah, and I would even say, so far as, when we receive school all emails about, I'm cleaning out this closet and I have a file
Right.
cabinet, that's not district
Yeah.
business for us as board members. Those things are
Yeah.
absolutely
Those
okay.
generally get deleted before I finish the sentence.
Yes. Yes.
Because
don't need
it
that.
doesn't concern me. Yeah.
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 But if that's clear, then I'm good with this.
Yeah, and this directive came from, in recent events, there have been requests for access to board member
Right.
communications. And so there was a lot of opportunity to clarify, what does that mean? What does that look like? What is official business? And really, when you are serving in a role such as a school board member or any other elected office, your communications about that are public record.
Yep.
And so it is your responsibility to maintain them. For most of us, that's primarily our board member email. But it is important to keep in mind, if somebody would ever email your personal email account, maybe not knowing or whatever the rationale might be, really good practice would be to forward that to your board member email, so that then it is
On file.
it's filed there, it's saved. And honestly, I've had that happen a time where I forwarded it to my board member email, and then I used my board member email to reply to the individual, so that they then had my board
Okay.
member email. So those are just things to kind of keep in mind. It is part of the uncomfortable part of serving in this role. And it doesn't mean that every text message in your phone is public business, because it's not. But if there are any correspondences that are discussing anything in your role on the board, within board members, those things would be public business. And it probably is good to clarify, that is not a routine practice of this board. We do not confer through email. We do send information out on occasion. If a special meeting is scheduled, as board president, I need to be able to email all board members. But our practice for that within the board would be to email all board members as blind carbon copies, so that there's not any reply alls, anything like that happening on threads. So I do think it's something that we currently do well, but having it spelled out so that as new people come onto the board, they really understand this is the expectation. Make sure you understand what it is you're signing up for. You might have to send screenshots of your text messages to the newspaper. That's part of the job. So
Unless you're asking Cindy for coffee.
yeah, then you don't have to send that one.
That is not related.
Are there any other questions, Skip? I'm really glad that you clarified that. That was
Yeah.
a great question. Anything else, concern-wise, question-wise, anything that seems to be missing that we need to look at changing before we would be ready to take action on this?
No, that was the only one I had.
Okay.
I did appreciate where it says the access to the email accounts, because I want teachers in the community and anybody who is reaching out to us to know that it's not just out there for everyone to see. They can feel safe in contacting people.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, I would anticipate that we'll probably bring that back to the April board meeting agenda, and we may be ready to adopt that policy at that point. We've now seen it twice in front of us as a board and been able to discuss it, but as we all know, there were hours of conversations that led to the development of this. So I think we've done a nice job hashing through that together. So thank you for that. Okay. Finance and budget update. This is the focus of tonight's meeting, and my goal was to get here at 6:30, so we almost made it. That's pretty good. So we will turn this time over to Dr. McDonald to present to us some updates on what we're looking at budget.
Sure. No, thank you. I guess the first thing is why we're here and why we're talking about budget in March, right? So there's a lot of variables that we don't know, typically won't know until about June 1st to June 10th on estimated valuation for the district. Typically, that is approved
Thank you.
around August
A lot easier
20th.
to look at.
And then, we are obviously going through this year, not quite down the collective bargaining types of things. But there are some things that we can look at and discuss, and what I think I sent you the Google format so that you could bring up on your laptop if you want, so then I can just follow along. What I thought I would do is, the reason why we're discussing this is we obviously have state aid or TIOSA, but the state TIOSA formula, but the state aid to schools has come out. It has been certified, and North Platte Public Schools is looking at a $2 million reduction in state aid. The reason for that is because at the state level, they take a look at your adjusted valuation each and every year. So our valuation this year to begin the year was around $3.15 billion. But the adjusted valuation that they're working off of for next year was $3.36 billion. And because of that, we went from 31.5 million in yield from local effort rate to 33.6 million in yield to local effort rate, and there's where the $2 million comes in. So what is that telling us? The state is telling us that locally that we can utilize more property taxes within their adjusted formula. And so that's how they look at that when they're putting these numbers together as far as state aid from year to year. So next year, if your adjusted value goes up again, your local effort rate will continue to go up. If it comes down, your local effort rate will come down. And what does that mean? Well, if it comes down, you're going to receive more in state aid. If it goes up, you're going to receive less in state aid in simplest terms. So that's the reason why we are currently looking at the state aid numbers that we are looking at for the next year. So what I did within this format is just, you can see the proposed budgets over the last 3 years from 23-24 to current 25-26, and then the scenario section there on column F is kind of what we are currently seeing or trending. The green at the top, again, this is all instructions. So basically what I did, instead of manipulating each line item, which we'll get into more in June and July, taking a look at where our collective bargaining is currently, and this is kind of a reflection of the salaries and benefits of all of our staff across the district. So I just lumped that into all instruction. So that includes, that's where we're at with everybody right now. So just understand that that's not, when we look at support staff, administration, all of those different areas, I lumped it up there just to keep it simple for this practice. So what I anticipated was a roughly 1.71%, or it's about $1 million increase in the total budget as far as this scenario is concerned. And so that's what the green highlighted area on line 6 there, F6, represents. And then if you continue to go down, I did not address any of the other areas. So I kept it the same from one budget cycle to the other in regards to the current numbers that we have within the budget. So there's no increases to any of those. Again, that will ebb and flow based on the $1 million that I indicated on all instructions. So those line items will change a little bit as we go and we get into the weeds more in June and July, but that's a fairly good estimate there. The other green line items there that are highlighted is line 21. Those are the 4,000 codes. That's facility acquisitions and construction. So what is that? What do we utilize that for? Well, we utilize that for construction projects, land and site acquisition if we need major building improvements, and any other construction-related services. That's what the 4,000 codes is. Districts utilize those dollars if you need it for the course of the year. If you don't utilize that for the course of the year, you have an opportunity to transfer those into depreciation for those specific uses. So that is one area that potentially can be manipulated within the budget moving forward. You go down to line item 24 where it talks about transfers, and you can see in 23-24 and 24-25 those transfers were $140,000. This year we bumped that up $500,000. Again, that $500,000 is to assist. You can transfer those to depreciation. It would assist in buying vehicles through depreciation if you wanted to do that as vehicles age, activity, buses, all of those types of things. You have curricular areas that you might need in regards to those transfers, and then your activities also are affected by those transfers. Typically, that $140,000 was something that went into activities to help balance out our activity accounts throughout the year as they have been flowed through all of their different activities that take place at the middle and high school levels. So that is another area that you could consider manipulating that number as we go through. So if all things stayed the same within and all instruction was increased by that 1.71%, you would see a total requirement of $58,587,507 for the 26-27 year. That represents that 1.71%. If I go down just a little bit, and the next green box is the receipts. So that is your beginning cash balances. You can see the last 3 years. The estimated for the 25-26 was $10,000 to the green. Once August rolled around, when we had all of our notices out, we did have a negative balance in there. So that's not a true reflection of where we were, but that was an estimate of where we thought we would be. The $200,000 for the 26-27 is based on, I went in and took a look at our general fund that I show every month to you, and I went in and provided the exact receipts that the district receipted over the course of time throughout the rest of the year, and then balance that with the expenditures as well, as far as where we're at average-wise, and knowing that typically April and May, or May and June, is a little bit higher in the expenditures just because of requisitions. And so when I got to that point, $200,000 was roughly the number that had that we should expect moving forward as far as moving into deposit. Now, that being said, if we have some other receipts come in and we're under budget like we are now, that number could be between $1 million and $2 million. I mean, there's just some flexibility there. We truly don't know, but we'll have a better understanding when we get to July and the first part of August what that may look like. So that's positive in that regard when we talk about beginning cash balance. We don't know the county treasurer balance. Again, the county treasurer balance has come down because a lot of the property tax credit we're receiving is in April and May, and that property tax credit used to be a part of the county treasurer balance. Well, because we're seeing that earlier, we can't roll as much forward and anticipate that in September. So that is kind of I don't know right now. I mean, that could fluctuate too. Just kind of an unknown. So the rest of the receipts, if all things stayed the same, that I had kept them the same as far as our local, county, and state resources. Again, the green item, you can see where our state aid current year is $9,115,739. Next year, it will be $7,598,347. So that's the difference there. If you continue down, state sources remaining the same, federal sources hopefully remaining the same, although some of those receipts will probably be a little bit less depending on those grant reimbursements that we have. They seem to be a little bit less each year that we get into that process. But we're hopeful that they remain very similar as we go. So the total receipts available as we look at that next year, if all things stayed the same with the reduction and a little bit improvement on the beginning cash balance, would be $24,630,747, or a reduction of 7.76%. So So what does that mean moving forward? Well, if you continue down, you can see the general fund requirements that we talked about earlier. Again, the non-tax receipts, which I just mentioned. Your property tax asking, based on these numbers, would be $33,956,760. But remember, there's a 1% county treasurer fee. So the actual total would be $34,299,757. So if you come down, your general fund tax request, again, moving that down, the next green box is your valuation. So I will manipulate this a little bit too. This is a 5% growth in valuation. I don't know what that will be. Typically June 1 to June 10, you kind of understand what that estimate is going to be, and you can have a better understanding of what that percent will be. If it's an increase, if it's a decrease, if it's remained stagnant, I just don't know. So it's kind of a guessing game there currently. So that, just understand that amount there represents 5%. Your levy would, just on this scenario, would be 97 cents roughly. If you continue down the column F, I left the qualified capital purpose undertaking fund request. Again, you can see where we were in 23-24 was just over $1 million. 24-25 was 261,000 and some change. This year currently was 100,000. So if I let that again at 100,000, that would represent, less than 1 cent. It's 0.0029 on the levy. So what does that represent? Well, again, at the bottom, your total tax request would be $34,400,767, and again, 97.5 cents would be your total levy. They provided some projections in regards to the tax authority, and if you remember, these were the discussions we had last year in July and into August with your authority. When we talk about your allowable growth plus your 2% is your authority that they give you before you would have to, in essence, go to the joint public meeting that had been discussed. So the 20, I don't know what that is right now, obviously, because we don't know what the growth has been plus the 2%, and we won't know that until later. But I do know that the projected property tax authority is $35,149,605. So I guess to point out, the district has the authority on this scenario that I presented for 26-27, has the authority to run a balanced budget based on those numbers because of the authority. If you chose the additional 5%, if you need the additional 5%, then that would be $37,592,781 in additional authority for the district if you needed that for your budget. So, and then at the bottom, I just had indicated what 1 cent levy growth per some valuations, those assessed valuation and what that means. Everybody's different with their assessed valuation, obviously, but those are just in general that most districts have. So those valuation, so basically, if you go from 93, almost 94 cents to 97.5 cents, I'll just use the first line item. If you have $50,000 of value, then that would be $5 per year, or in this particular situation, it's about 4 cents. So it would, to the person that had that type of value, it would be $20 more per year in regards to that, what the levy would be. So, any questions before I kind of jump in and manipulate some of these numbers and you can kind of see the ebb and flow of what this may look like?
So you're saying that what we have right here in front of us is with a 4 cent levy growth?
This scenario, yes.
Yes, okay.
And that's also including a 5% valuation increase.
It is.
So both of those would impact people's property taxes. They would both be the two multipliers in that potentially. Okay.
So
Very thorough. Thank you for the data.
Very
So let me, I'm going to go into the valuation, and I'm going to change that from 5 to 2.5. Let's say there's a 2.5% growth. And what that would do, to the levy. I'm gonna go back up since I changed that to 2.5. So therefore, your total request is staying the same, but your levy would then move to 99 cents, okay, almost $1. Your authority is still at $35,149,605. So your authority is actually above what the request would be if it was 2.5% growth on valuation, okay? So that's what that would look like if it was 2.5%. So if I go back down here and I can say, you know what, we had a lot of growth, and let's just say it was an 8% growth this year. Okay, so what does that do? Well, that would, again, our tax request is still remaining the same because we haven't changed anything expenditure or receipt-wise, but then because of that growth, obviously the levy is going to be around 94, 95 cents. I'm going to move that back to 5% just because. Okay, so if I go up, if all the scenarios are the same as I discussed before, let's just say as far as the 4,000 codes that you decided, you know what, we're going to leave that at $0, and then I'm going to go back to the transfers and I'm going to move that back to 140,000. And what does that do? Well, our total requirements obviously go down, and so what does that do? It moved our total requirements to $33,608,488. Our total levy again is right at 95 cents, but your projected authority there stays the same. So that's as far as transfers are concerned, that's one way to look at that. Okay.
And remind me, so I know transfers, that 140 when it was at that amount was primarily, I think basically all of that was going from general fund to support the activities
Correct.
fund. With the increase of it to 640, what are the other funds that is supporting? Just so I know what that would be
Yeah, so-
jeopardizing if you bring it back down.
Right, so basically what we were looking at would be curriculum, mostly curriculum, and then also some vehicle acquisitions there. Then some technology would have to be a part of that as well. And so that's what that would support. Now, again, this year, the reason that we increase those transfers is you don't have to transfer those dollars. So if you want to keep it there because you want your general fund to become more solvent, then you just move those funds forward, knowing that the goal is to at least become a month and a half more solvent to begin the year, so that we don't have to rely on a line of credit
Right.
throughout the year.
Yeah.
But also keep in mind too is once you get to that point, that's great, because then you're not relying on your interfund transfers to support that. So that's the other piece to this is right now we're relying on a lot of interfund transfers to support where we are on the low receipt months. However, but that's keeping our line of credit at more of a minimum. If you go forward with some of your projects for facilities, all of those types of things, then that interfund becomes less, and you're still going to rely more, your line of credit will be more moving forward, unless the beginning cash balance kind of outweighs that. So again, we're averaging anywhere from 4.2 to 4.5 in expenditures. That's been down a little bit because our budget has been under budget, so that's a good thing. And so hopefully that trends that our beginning cash balances will pick up to the point where that will be sustainable. And then if you keep the budget the same, then those transfers will go into depreciation. You can utilize those funds more readily and not worry about that line of credit and the interest that is being drawn off of that at that particular point in time. So, okay, so let's see, I'm going to move those back. Let's just leave all of that the same, and let's say that our cash balance, I'll just say, you know what, we were under budget, we're moving in the right direction, and we are $2 million to the good for the general fund to start the year. Well, again, our total request then goes down to $32,582,586. total levy at that point would be 92 cents, and again, your authority stays the same. I can't manipulate state aid because that's what they said we're getting, so it is what that is.
We wish we could do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So those are the
We're
areas.
gonna do this year.
Yeah, those are the areas that, we have an opportunity to have further discussion on as we get further into the year, into the summer months, and we really get into the weeds of the budget.
Very good.
We'll have a better understanding and valuation, obviously, in June. And then there's obviously some areas that you can control as far as transfers and those types of things. We really want to get to a point where we can maintain those transfers, and then, obviously we can utilize those dollars within depreciation or within that any given year that we may need for preventative maintenance, facility upgrades, again, technology, vehicles. We talked about tennis courts. Our complex out here, the football turf isn't always, that's going to wear out, and the track surface is going to wear out. We're going to need some dollars to do that. If we were to do that today and we took away those funds, obviously the line of credit's going to be bigger because we just won't have enough within those interfund transfers to maintain. So
When should we have like the facility acquisitions? Because I know we do like summer projects, so.
yeah, so I met with Mr. Ayers has put out some information to the buildings. And I believe the buildings principals have, they have their own list, they talk to their staff. I'm going to sit down with him, and I've asked him to come forward and provide a presentation here in April.
Great.
So we can kind of have a better understanding of what that may look like.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think this is a really good start, and specifically as you see my notes, all the things that you explained, and I think this is going to help us as we move along, especially when it gets to the point where we really have to be making decisions later on in the year about exactly what it is we want to do. Plus, we also have to wait till we get the more information from the county and that type of thing in June. But I really appreciate this. I think it's a really good start for getting us to think in this
Starting
manner.
earlier than later.
Yeah. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it feels weird having this conversation in March, but I actually think this is the perfect starting point because this allows us to manipulate things and see how the numbers impact different areas before we even have some of the concrete numbers. And honestly, I think that that's great because then as you start plugging them in, you go, okay, we now know what this number is going to be. We're still missing this piece. Here are some of our options moving forward. And I also think, this board has had a lot of conversations about advocacy and opportunities, and that's been an area that we've wanted to see some growth on our own board and our efficiency. And budget is a perfect example of where we should be advocating for the state. And I had a very nice meeting with Senator Jacobson this past week and expressed to him, like, hey, I hear you on property taxes. We hear you, and we're doing what we feel like is what we can do right now. However, do you realize that you are not incentivizing us to decrease property taxes with the TIOSA formula? And he said, yes, we realize it. I said, okay, is this going to continue to be a focus? Because if we're going to continually lose state aid because we're not increasing property taxes every year, then we have to increase property taxes to make up for the state aid that we didn't get. And so it's an unfortunate cycle of money does not just grow on trees. It's being paid by the taxpayers somewhere at the end of the day, and where's it going to come from? And I do think there's probably still some work we can do on our end to tighten things in some certain areas. There might be hard conversations that need to happen at some point, but it's got to be an effort on both sides. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to continue having those conversations beyond the walls of our own district. But this is a really good first look at kind of knowing where things might be heading. So
I think the other narrative to that too is, they have touted the 80% reimbursement for special education, and those dollars are drying up, and so it's not going to be 80%. And so, that was another narrative to reduce property taxes because there were more receipts coming into school districts. But now that that's drying up, it's there's only one way to continue to fund those types of programs or make other decisions in regards to your district. So.
Absolutely. Well, and I appreciate you plugging in some different numbers there in that cash balance, because I think as we round out the year, I know that a lot of people have, maybe had to change some of the choices they normally would have made during the school year. I know that there have been some sacrifices made, maybe things done a little differently this year, in the spirit of trying to not spend as much money. But I think when we look at this, just being able to start off the school year with a positive cash balance, that's great to see that be green and not red. But knowing that if we continue to finish this year out strong in the way that we're trending, that cash balance number may be higher for next school year, which then impacts how we're able to hopefully not increase property taxes on our constituents so much. So it's, all of that has a lasting impact, not just on our schools, but on our entire community. And so seeing that and seeing those numbers, the difference that made is really very impactful. So I hope that encourages our team to keep having those conversations and making those decisions. But yeah, thank you, Dr. McDonald.
Sure.
We appreciate that. Are there any further questions at this time from the board? Okay. Well, we will revisit that when we have more concrete numbers to plug into some of those areas, and we can continue from there. Dr. McDonald, would you anticipate us needing to maybe schedule a budget workshop at some point in the next couple of months? At what point should we be keeping that on our radar?
Well, I think probably at the earliest in June, once you have those estimated valuations, and then there'll be a better predictor in regards to that beginning cash balance at that particular point in time too, because a lot of those school property tax credits will have come in already, and typically your July and August receipts are going to be a little bit less. So by June, there should be a very good indicator as to where we are.
Okay. Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, at this time, I just essentially have an update that I will need to provide to the board. An update for the public is that we are in the midst of negotiating with an interim superintendent contract. So the board did conduct interviews on Tuesday. We had a very long and productive day together on Tuesday and interviewed 3 excellent candidates who then also interviewed with admin team and went on tours of buildings. And so that process was a little long and grueling, but we did take action to authorize me to negotiate with up to 2 candidates if necessary. So that process has started, and we will shortly move into a closed session simply so that I can provide the board with an update on those negotiations and receive some guidance back on how to continue and hopefully wrap up that negotiation process. So that is what we will be doing. There will not be any action taken on this item tonight. So if you're lingering here, I promise you will not miss anything exciting if you don't wish to stay during our closed session. But I don't anticipate it being exceptionally long either. Okay?
Yeah, we said that last time.
I know, that was wishful thinking. I think I'm telling the truth this time. All right, I'm ready for you.
No, I'm just kidding.
I move pursuant to the section 84-1410 of the reissue of the revised statutes of 1992, known as the Nebraska Public Meetings Law, that the board hold a closed session for the purpose of discussion of the following items: personnel and contract negotiations. I further move that this closed session is clearly necessary for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals, and that strategy sessions with respect to real estate, litigation, and collective bargaining are specifically authorized by the Nebraska Public Meetings Law.
Second.
Okay, Sheila, roll call, please.
Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Aye.
Skip Altic.
Aye.
Joanne Lynn Green.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Okay. Okay, let the record show we came out of closed session at 7:17. And at this time, I would entertain a
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Third. Mitch got it.
I
Mitch beat you.
Yeah.
He hardly ever speaks. So
Roll
roll
call,
call.
please. Let the record show Mitch spoke.
Saving it up for that one.
Roll call, please, Sheila.
Okay, Mitch Wagner.
Was.
We're on.
Mitch Wagner. Skip Altic.
Aye.
Joanne Lynn Green. I don't know why it was.
Say aye.
Aye.
Concerts.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Angela Blazy.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.